Hello there guys, it's Stephen here. It's 24 hours after Manchester City versus Feyenoord, our 17th win in a row, our 18th out of 19 this season, which is a pretty phenomenal, ridiculous stat. But that is the 95% win percentage that Pep is operating at the moment. But it wasn't a great game, but there are plenty of things learned, mainly about Foden, mainly as well myself about the Tunnel Club. I was there last night, blank de plume. Thank you on Twitter for giving me that chance to sit there. Some random guy who DM'd me and said, do you want to sit there? Because I wanted to go to a proper City fan. I was like, yeah, got wine and dine, sat with the fancy people. Met this god of a person. Yeah, I met the Shark Team founder, Benjamin Mendy. He was hobbling around, but what a nice man he is. I got a photo of him. That photo has actually made my evening. I was giddy and a little bit pissed last night. And as ever, this video is sponsored by the wonderful people over at OneFootball. Go and download that app in the description below because it's a very good app and it keeps you up to date with all Manchester City news and so on. But let's get onto the 5 talking points. And one of them probably isn't about my experience at Tunnel Club. That was just a really weird one-off situation for me. But let's go into the actual game. I'm going to start with mainly the fact that we got the job done. Now, I think Pep made it pretty obvious by the team he selected, a stronger team than most predicted, that he wanted to win the group and he wanted to win it last night, and that's what he got just about in the end. Now, obviously, the value of this is hugely important to us. It means now, ahead of the derby in December, when we go to Shakhtar, that result is 100% irrelevant. It means nothing to us now. We can lose that if we want to do, and we'll still be top of the group, and it means we can rest all our players ahead of Manchester United. It wasn't the most titillating game. It was the kind of game where we never really got out of first gear. I felt like a lot of the players were even just resting on the pitch. They were just going through the motions against a Feyenoord team that were rock bottom of the table. They had nothing really to play for either. And in general, we were just there and we just got the job done eventually. It was a nothing game, but there were a few moments of joy to remember from it. And for me, it comes to point number 2. And that's Phil Foden and Brahim Diaz. Now, Phil Foden is a 17-year-old Manchester City fan from Stockport. Does it get any more magical than that? That is fantastic stuff to see a young lad make his Champions League debut for the club he loves, the club he grew up at. It's incredible. And I am absolutely delighted for Phil Foden and his dad. There was this incredible kind of swell of goodwill towards him when he came on. I could see him from where I was sat. He looked excited. He looked like he wanted to get on the pitch, and I've never seen someone move so quick. Actually, quicker was Brahim, but I'll get that onto in a minute. And in general, Phil, I thought he did everything that he should have done. I think Pep obviously wanted to get him on a lot earlier. I think he wanted to get Brahim on a lot earlier, but couldn't because we hadn't secured the game yet. But he still put him on anyway, even though he obviously wanted to win. Which obviously says a lot about how much they rate Phil Foden. He's 17. I know he didn't set the world alight with his performance, but he did nothing wrong either. My theory in general is young lads should be eased in professional football, and he showed for the ball. He was 1-touch passing, 2-touch, kept the ball, didn't give it away, and in general he looked like he belonged out there, and that's all he needed to do. He didn't need to have anything fancy. He just had to be at ease in a blue shirt in front of 50,000 people, whatever it was, and he did that in my personal opinion. I bumped into his dad after the game, and his dad had a massive grin on his face as well. It's just special watching this young lad that I first saw, I think when he was 14 years ago, watching in some international tournament during the season, during like July 2015, maybe even earlier than that, thinking, oh, this slight whip of a lad, what a talent he was then, and now he's playing for Manchester City's first team. It's just fantastic. And Brahim Diaz, he only got 4 minutes, but it's still a huge moment for him. I saw Pep's reaction. I was sat right behind the bench, which was a phenomenal experience. Seeing Vincent Kompany in front of me, De Bruyne, Jesus, everyone else, seeing all the players just there as they were coming off for substitute appearances and so on. But Pep, when we scored, Raheem Sterling scored, I saw Pep all of a sudden go, oh, Brahim. And Brahim was down at the other end warming up, and he gestured him frantically to get him on the pitch. He tried to stop the referees restarting the game so he could get him on. It shows to me how much Pep actually wanted Brahim to get some game time with that. It shows to me how much he cared. And you can see in the faces of the young players that it actually meant a lot to him. And I thought Brahim, he had 2 touches. One was a turn, spin, and a drive at the defence where he kept the ball. Did turn back eventually when he got caught up, but he didn't lose the ball. And he looked a lot stronger than he did when he played against Swansea last season in that other fleeting appearance he made. It was a good night, and that's the building blocks for them now to hopefully get a few more appearances this season. These are the kind of people that we want to see break through. It sends a message to the academy. It sends a huge boost around the CFA now, and Foden and Brahim, they'll be on cloud 9 today, and it's just the start hopefully. And the third point for me was Raheem Sterling, the man that seems to be growing in stature and confidence every single week. Another big moment, an incredibly composed, sumptuous finish from a man who probably isn't really associated with controlled and sumptuous finishes. That's his 11th goal of the season. I think that's his best ever goal scoring record ever, at least for City, in only 17 games so far this year. He should be bagging 20 goals this season. And that goal, I don't think he was at his best out on the left in general, by the way. When he swapped with Silver, he looks a lot more at home. But that kind of like almost second striker's instinct. That 1-2 with Gundogan after the beautiful passes in the previous game, he's showing an intelligence that most people don't simply have. And then obviously the return run, and then the dink over the keeper. He's having this incredible moment where he's embodying this never say die spirit that Pep really practices. Pep is all about not being complacent, and I think Raheem is showing why Pep likes him, because he's constantly driving defenses, he's constantly positive, he's constantly fighting for the ball, and obviously he has pace, skill, desire to get into positions to score goals, and he's making some of these chances himself by just being sheerly and utterly focused on getting in the right place, and it's fantastic to watch. He's developing into someone almost on the cusp of being a senior player just by his attitude, and he's still so very, very young. I'm buzzing for him. He's top of 2 leagues now, Raheem Sterling, to quote my good friend Walter, and it's wonderful to see because he absolutely deserves it. And the 4th point for me is about the squad depth. Now, a lot of people were saying, I think it proves our squad isn't that strong. I would counter that by saying if you make 6 or 7 changes from a starting lineup at the weekend, in general, being players who haven't played much football, you're probably going to see a slightly rusty performance. I think in general, we didn't really get out of first gear. I think that was largely by choice, if I'm being totally honest with you. You look at the players that weren't involved. In terms of centre-backs, there was no Kompany who probably would have started if it was a big game. Obviously, Stones is now injured. Then we didn't have Fabian Delph, who's become our first choice left-back. Then we had no Fernandinho, no David Silver, no Leroy Sané. Even Gabriel Jesus got a little bit of a rest there. So there was a lot of changes. And the people brought in, Danilo, I thought, he did okay at left back. He isn't a left back in general, but he did okay. He offered a little bit of width and he offered a bit of energy. And he's a good little player, but obviously hasn't played much football. Mangala wasn't that good. Once again, he isn't suited for our style. In general, he had a relatively quiet game, and that's all it needed to be. Yaya just looks slow. He doesn't look like he has the legs or energy anymore to offer the dynamism, especially when he's replacing someone like Fernandinho, who obviously is the heartbeat of Manchester City's team at the moment. And David Silver, obviously, we're going to miss someone like him. Gundogan, I think he kind of would have been a lot better alongside Fernandinho instead of Yaya. But he didn't have his best game, but obviously he was still incredibly important for the goal. My final point is actually about the squad rotation as well, but specifically Bernardo Silver. A lot of people said on Twitter talk about Bernardo Silver, because I think the general consensus is some people are a little bit underwhelmed by him, and it's probably fair enough. I think in general, he's not that effective in the Premier League at very least, or in the way we play so far as a winger. We are so used to watching Sterling and Sané burst past people with pace, power and goal threat, and I think he's still finding his way into this team. He hasn't really set the world alight yet, I think that's fair to say, but he still obviously looks very tidy, very intelligent. A lot of people probably want to see him drift inside, and I do think he'd be a lot more effective there with his quick feet. I think when you've got there one-on-one with a defender and you squared up to him, I don't think that's when he's at his best. I think he's at his best when he's been instinctive and when he's moving quicker and in tight spaces in midfield where he can turn and all of a sudden have options either side of him to play passes. I think that's where he's going to be most effective in the David Silva role, which he's not going to get there. Another person online, which I saw on a forum, saying he thinks that maybe Mendy was part of the Bernardo Silva plan. Like he was the kind, because obviously they worked so well together. Maybe the idea was to play Bernardo Silva a little bit more inside every now and then. Obviously he's linked up with Mendy. The way that Bernardo Silva draws space allows for overlapping fullback, someone like Mendy to kind of bomb on past him. But that's obviously not been able to happen yet because obviously Mendy's injuries. That's just a theory someone else had. I mean, in general, he's adapting to the pace of the league. But what I will say is that he's potentially a world-class player. I think anyone would agree with that. I don't know if he'll get there or not. I genuinely don't. But one thing I do know is that I would rather him find that out at Manchester City than Real Madrid or Barcelona. I think he's worth having at our squad, because if he doesn't make it, it means someone else has superseded him. And if someone like Brahim or Foden comes through and they jump ahead of him, it's hardly a bad thing. It's win-win in my personal opinion. We either get someone like Bernardo Silva, it turns out to be fantastic, or maybe it doesn't quite work out. We make a decent fee on him, 25 to 30 million. He moves on, so be it. But I'm glad he's at Manchester City still. I think time will tell on him. I think he's still a fantastic player. His touch, his technique is absolutely high level. I just think he needs to find his role within the team, and I do trust Pep to get whatever's there out of him, and it'll come with time. We've just got to be patient. But anyway, guys, there are my 5 talking points in the game. What were yours? What did you think of the game? It wasn't anything particularly memorable, but it was interesting. There was definitely lessons to be learned, as there always is. Let me know in the comments who your man of the match was and all that kind of stuff. And I got to meet Benjamin Mendy. Yes, I know I'm 32 and I should be this excited, but fucking hell, the man is an absolute king. And I met him. I was pissed and giddy. And what a night that was. Anyway, guys, subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a like on the video. And I will see you next time.